We had pro bono attorneys working with refugees from Central America who were seeking asylum in the U.S. courts. Many of our clients had been tortured and persecuted and suffered from post-traumatic stress, and several of them were living at the Catholic Worker House at Sukasa. Pat and JoAnn were wonderful shepherds of those women and men who had suffered so greatly. Imagine putting them in the U.S. court system where they're going to be cross-examined by government attorneys and trying to tell their story, reliving much of that fear and the pain that they had suffered.
I think that if people who, don't know much about immigration or who are kind of, fearful of immigrants or have disdain towards them, I think if they were to go to court, they would really change that opinion. Or in the words of Oscar Ramiro, he used to always say to the people who were responsible for a great deal of persecution in El Salvador, he would say, just be converted.
Sister Pat is very diminutive, and so she was my character witness for our client, and so I asked my questions, and then she's up for cross-examination, and I can't believe the government attorney actually tried to cross-examine her, because how are you going to look cross-examining like a 4-foot-tall, 80-pound nun? Like, you look kind of like a jerk. But she had the best answers, because the government attorney tried to say that Sister Pat didn't really know this person, didn't know what he had been convicted for, and she listed off his convictions and then went on to say and these very concrete points about how he developed as a person and and like what she saw in him about how he could grow, like if given the chance. And it was just like, get it. It was really great. So that was all. It makes me, I still giggle at watching the government attorney try to cross-examine Sister Pat. Because I also thought she thought she could intimidate her, because she is a diminutive person, and Sister Pat was having none of it.
And working with Pat and JoAnn was instrumental to our success, and also very powerful witnesses to those individuals that they had comfort. They provided food, they provided shelter, and they also provided presence. They sat with these people, they talked with them, they helped them deal and survive the trauma they had been through.
People name it different things, but for me it's God and the presence of God in our lives, and mostly the presence of God in all the people that we interact with.
Faith is justice, and if you really want to be a good person or a person who follows the word of God, you need to be fighting for what's right. That's exactly how you do it.
In my view, their secret is simply their foundation of faith compels them to view every human being with dignity. And I know that they are very committed to that mission. And in that regard, they have been a constant presence, particularly locally, in terms of advocating for this population, advocating that this population have access to pastoral care while in detention.
And she said, because you and Pat put your whole heart into everything, no wonder you have all these people standing with you. But I think that's the key. It's the presence, not the words, but that you're there with your whole heart.
But it is really amazing that there is this group of people that do this every week to just be present with the immigration detainees in McHenry. I think people are just very thankful that other people are paying attention, that they're not alone in their loss and their suffering. And they don't feel condescended to. It's just like the presence, again, back to presence. It's like there are people there that care and that are going to be there, and losing a family member in that way has to be so painful and so isolating, and it's just so hard. And so I think the fact that these women show up and this group shows up every week, it doesn't change the fact that it's happening, but at least they know that other people are paying attention and that other people care.
This fella who would stand up in you probably, I don't know, in McHenry County, the windows are slits, but the guys and the women can see out the slits. So he said to us, he said, when I watch you coming across the parking lot, he said, and I think it's not my time to go today, because they only come every other week. There are so many of them. He said, but it just makes me feel good that you are in the building. I can't go, but it makes me feel good to know that you're there.
For compassionate immigration reform and an end to this horror of tearing apart of families that takes place over and over again across our country. Nearly 1,100 deportations.